never intended for this to happen. It started as nothing. Stolen glances, polite conversations, fleeting moments that should have meant nothing. But the way he looked at me, the way his presence lingered in the air long after he was gone, left me restless. It was dangerous, the kind of temptation that crept into my thoughts when I was alone, making my pulse race with guilt and something darker. I convinced myself it was harmless, that I had control. But control had begun to slip through my fingers the moment his hand accidentally brushed against mine for just a second too long. The moment his voice dropped into that low, knowing tone that made my stomach tighten. And now, with the night stretching ahead of us and the world oblivious, we were alone. Finally, devastatingly alone. The air between us felt electric, charged with something unspoken yet undeniable. Shadows flickered across the dimly lit room, casting soft lines along his sharp jaw, the dangerous curve of his lips. He stood close, too close. His scent, warm and intoxicating, curled around me like invisible chains. His presence alone was enough to make me forget every reason I had to walk away. He didn't touch me, not yet, but I could feel the heat radiating from his body, the silent challenge in his dark gaze, the kind of stare that didn't ask for permission. It dared me to deny what we both knew was inevitable. I swallowed hard, my breath catching as his fingers traced the space between us, hovering near my hip, but never quite making contact. We shouldn't. His voice was barely above a whisper, his lips dangerously close to my ear. The words were rational, but the way he said them was anything but. It was a dare. A test of willpower that we both knew I was losing. My pulse pounded, my skin tingling in anticipation of a touch that hadn't even happened yet. The tension stretched between us, unbearable and electric like a storm about to break. His fingers finally, barely, brushed over my wrist, and it was like fire against my skin. Slow, deliberate. Every nerve ignited as he trailed his fingertips upward over my arm, up to my shoulder, a path of heat in their wake. I inhaled sharply, my body betraying me, leaning ever so slightly toward him. His lips hovered close, so close, just a breath away. He wasn't in a hurry. He wanted me to feel the weight of every second, every inch of space that still separated us. It was torment. It was a game neither of us wanted to win. My breath hitched as his knuckles brushed along the curve of my neck, teasing, exploring, setting my skin on fire. My fingers curled into fists at my sides, fighting the urge to reach for him, to pull him closer, to surrender to the inevitable. I could feel his breath against my collarbone, warm, inviting, full of promises I wasn't sure I was ready to keep. A sudden noise outside made me jolt, reality slicing through the thick haze of desire. My heart pounded as my mind caught up with what we were doing, what we were about to do. His hand tightened around my waist, grounding me, his touch a silent reassurance. "Relax," he murmured, but there was amusement in his tone, as if he knew exactly what he was doing to me. But how could I relax? We were one wrong move away from shattering everything. One step too far, and there would be no turning back. I swallowed, trying to find my voice, trying to be strong enough to stop this before it was too late. But then he lifted my chin with a single finger, forcing me to look at him. "Tell me to stop," he whispered. A plea, a challenge. The words were there. I could say them. I should say them. But I didn't. Instead, I exhaled slowly, my lips parting slightly, betraying me. And that was all he needed. His lips finally met mine, and the world shattered. It wasn't soft, it wasn't hesitant, it was fire, reckless, consuming, the kind of kiss that erased all logic, all reason. His hands tightened around me, pulling me flush against him, and I let him. I melted into him, into the warmth, into the sheer inevitability of what we had both been fighting for too long. My fingers found his shirt, gripping the fabric as if it were the only thing keeping me grounded. His hands roamed, exploring, claiming, setting my skin ablaze with every touch. The taste of him was intoxicating, addictive, and I knew, deep down, that this was dangerous in ways I couldn't even begin to comprehend. Then, as if the universe itself had intervened, a voice echoed faintly from outside the door. We froze, breathless, heart-pounding. The moment stretched unbearably as reality slammed back into place. His fingers lingered on my wrist before he slowly pulled away, his breathing uneven, his eyes dark with something unreadable. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The weight of what had just happened, what almost happened, pressed down on us like a heavy fog. I took a shaky step back, pressing trembling fingers to my lips, still tingling from his kiss. "This can't happen again," I whispered. The words felt like a lie even as I spoke them. He didn't argue. He just watched me with that knowing, devastating smile. The kind that told me he already knew the truth. I was already his. As I stepped back into the light, back toward the life I was supposed to live, guilt curled in my stomach like a snake. But beneath it, buried deep where no one could see, was something far more dangerous. Desire. Longing. The night had ended, but the fire between us hadn't. And as I reached the door, his voice reached me one last time, a dark promise that sent a shiver down my spine. "See you soon."